Well, hello, hello, hello. I fell asleep. I took a little 15-minute nap, I did, which is why I'm on now rather than 15 minutes ago. Thank you all for hanging in there. I appreciate it very much. Now rather than 15 minutes. Let's see now where we are. Up, up. What's going on? Oh, curious. Show chat. There we go. Okay. All right, we're here now. We got it. Got it together. Hardwall, Jacob's Fishing and Fish Tank. Hello, Jacob. I thought I gave you a wrench before I took my map. I did. It just hadn't shown up yet. Stan Pittman. Hey, Stan. Some cake comp. He looks like a cake. That's a cake frog. Doug White. Hi, Doug. Jim Aaron's Sumagod. Shout out from the Philippines. Nice to see you, Jim. Get you a moderator button. Ziggy Squash. Ziggy Squatch from Minnesota. Ziggy Squatch. Nice to see you, Ziggy. And moderator. Get all you guys turned blue here. Gary Stein. Scott Stekovich is here. Happy New Year, Scott. Kleister. Let's see, Fish Hippie. Hey, Fish Hippie. Well, we got a mob in here already. We're pushing close to 100. James McGee. Good. How are you? Wyatt Laughlin. Hello, Wyatt. Let's see if I can get a wrench in your bucket here. There we go. BHE. Hello. Hello, BHE. Happy to see you. Ricky. Sheila Malik. Hello, Sheila. Happy to see you, Sheila, from another Minnesotan. Neutrino is here. April Potter from Western New York. Hello, April. Poison cake frog. Right, no, it's not a poison. Ray's Fish Room. Hello, Ray. A bunch of new people here. Gotta get y'all wrenched up. Preston Strobel should do a complete tank only. Things you find in nature. Well, I've kind of done that. It's really fun to do. Actually, that's what the saltwater tank is. But yesterday, I wonder if they're still in there. Yesterday, I was in a PetSmart and I bought some cardinals. Some, what are they called? Not stir-by. Can't even think. It's the little black and white stripe. We'll show them a little later. I see one. I was surprised. I checked my salinity, which I had not done before. It's supposed to be a brackish tank. Ain't brackish. Anything brackish about it. It is salt. So I put these guys in there and they let's see one. Let's see one. I got three. Bengai Cardinals. Never. Hello from flooded England. Goodness. We had a rain like that about a week ago. Just flooded the city. Johnny Mandia. Manja. Just got a wrench. My whim. Psycho Plant Lady. Neil Shannon. No, this is not. You know what this is, BHE? This is this is sculpture. It's handmade. It's made in Indonesia. There is a cottage industry in Indonesia using each one of these little branches is a twig that is glued on. I don't know if you can, if I show you the back, you can kind of see how it's put together. Each of these little branches are glued on. They're all cemented together. And they make these gorgeous, gorgeous things. And some of them are just immense. I would love to get a big shipment of them. I think they're really spectacular. I've had them in water and they do pretty well. They're natural, but they use some kind of an epoxy that that is colored. I think they simply use sawdust to color it, and they make these gorgeous things. I bought a bunch of them years ago, put them in the shop, wound up with one, like a brain that's been on a diet. What are you, Erie? Oh, Erie. Well, that figures. There's an Erie comment. Started setting up my first planted dirted sand tank today, says Larry Henry. Bravo, Larry. You go, guy. Nice. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to hit the like button, says Tess. Thank you, Tess. Jessica Chameleon, question for you about the stems package you sell on the website. How many gallons is that intended for? It is 15 plant bunches, 15 stem plant bunches. Each bunch has 3 to 5 stems in it, depending on the size and whatnot. So it's actually 15 times, it's about 60 stem plants. It is not too much for a 10-gallon tank. It works really well in a 20, like a 20, not a 20 long, a 20 tall. It'll be a nice um, a nice selection for a 20 tall. For a 20 long, I would get more than that. I would get maybe 2 packs, or get some other things like corkscrew Vallisneria. For a larger tank, doing things like swords. I also have cryptocorenes, which are nice, and I have anubias. And I've usually got them in stock. So there's a good rooted, well, one of them's rooted. The crypt is rooted. The anubias is a plant that you attach to hardscape. And it grows on a hardscape, like a Java fern. More than enough for a 5.5. Yes, it is, I would say. Um, I would put them all in, though. It's not too much. And you can, you'll see. You'll see. Just get them and try them. You'll be pleased. They're coming through really well, too. We're shipping them well. We got a big shipment coming in um, Tuesday morning. They will be in the mail by Tuesday afternoon and delivered by Thursday or Friday. Any that are in the mail longer than that go over the weekend to like the following Monday, are going to be okay. Beyond that, and it gets a bit problematic. More than 3 or 4 days, 5 days, absolute max in the mail, and they start wilting pretty badly. Um, Generally, what I'll do if that happens, it happens about 1% of the time. For every 100 shipments I send out, one of them is 5, 7, 8, 10 days getting there. And I just replace them. I ask people to share the cost with me by paying the $10 shipping costs, and I send them out again. Never had happened to the same person twice, so that's a good thing. Jessica says, already placed my order for that and the supplement. Well, those should be in the mail to you on Tuesday, Wednesday at the latest. Probably will be Tuesday. Todd Thurgood lost most of my clippings. That's unfortunate. Clippings should make it. Here's the thing though. If you've got a new plant and it's growing, don't clip it. Let it grow. Let it get to the point where it starts losing leaves on the bottom of the stem. Then trim it. If you clip it then, where you clipped it will sprout out and it'll double grow, and the stem part that you cut off will be strong enough that it'll begin producing roots as well at each nodule. So you can put that in the sand. My rule of thumb is to never trim. I never trim stem plants. I just let them grow. I'm not advising that. I do that because I'm weird. Because I just have a peculiar attitude about plants. I don't like to trim them. No matter what they are, I don't like to trim them. And they will. What happens though, if you have a tank that you don't trim, you never trim, you let it grow and grow and grow, and it clogs up the tank, it will reach a point where it will stop growing. Its growth rate will slow down to the point where there will be no visible growth. If you take a handful out, it'll grow to fill that space. It works the same way plants do in a climax forest. They grow to fill the available space and then they stop growing. They may continue to grow tall because there's no upper limit for a tree. There is an upper limit for aquatic plants. It's called the surface. There are lots of plants, though, and lots of these stem plants that will say, aha, the surface, zoom, and they'll shoot right up through it into the air, and that's when they really start to grow. Bacopa is a good example of this. Bacopa will do that. Ludwigia will do that. Those are two plants that love to get out of the water. They would prefer to have wet feet and have their leaves and stems out in the air. They grow faster. They can get more oxygen or more air to them, and they flower. They typically will not flower until they're out of the water. Mother Nature's Aquatics. Wondering how I can go about promoting your supplement. Huge believer in your methods. Sure, there are a lot of YouTubers trying to support your methods as well. Well, thank you, Mother Nature. Just talk about it, use it, rag on it, brag on it. I certainly appreciate it. Where are you located? Mother Nature's Aquatics. Where are you located? I'm looking for suppliers. I can't ship it out of the country because it gets hung up in customs because it's dirt. So I have a rep in Canada who is putting it together, manufacturing it essentially. Another one in the UK. We got a fellow who's setting up in the EU. We have an Australian who is next to ready to do it, and somebody in Brazil. So far we have five people in 5 countries who are manufacturing it, putting it together, and marketing it. I promote them on the fatherfish.fish website. I promote them by mentioning them. I promote them in YouTube's and in any other way I can, and I do not take a cut of their proceeds. It's an item that is sold at not enough above cost to be able to take a profit out of beyond the person who's actually doing all the work and putting it in the mail and taking the risk and all that. So I'm just happy to help some people get set up with a little business that they can then add a few other things too. And everyone who has done this is doing that. They're adding some other things. They're adding food web material, for example, or any other little thing they can come up with. So it's a lot of fun, and it's supporting some folks, providing some little secondary income, which all of us need, and is getting the word out. And more importantly, getting the product out, getting it out there. Nobody else is doing this. There are in Europe, there are some potting mixes that contain a lot of what we put in the food web, in the supplement. Not everything, but a lot of it's in there. There is no one in the U.S. doing it. And of course, there's nobody in the industry doing it, which surprises me because there are, well, I guess it isn't a market yet. And I think when it will be, they're gonna be up against a price point that they're really not gonna be able to match. Because you can't set up a commercial operation and make any money on it at the price we're charging for this stuff. Avery Steffens, Death by Fish Tanks, is a $10 super chat, and he says, "Thanks, Father Fish, for all those videos you made to convince me to use sand. I've always strived for a natural aquarium, but always missed one important element, the foundation." Yeah, it's really interesting how many people that's true for. It took me, try to remember, I kind of had a break in about the year 2000, roughly, when I really started doing this. I was training at that time in doing deep substrate saltwater tanks. And of course, that's all sand. It's live sand, cultured sand, but it's all sand. So I was used to using sand. And when I began to make the transition after reading Walstad to a dirted tank, oh, I had tried dirted tanks in the 1950s, failed utterly, had no idea of capping it. It just was, it was a mess. Saw that Walstad was having two major problems. One was the soil was depleting in about a year, and number two, the water was the water was dense with nutrients because the soil was leaching everything into the water column. So it was very obvious to me what to do. I knew that gravel didn't work because I had done under gravel filters for years. So I knew exactly how that worked. I knew that that water went right through the gravel and just washed everything right out again, or it would form pockets in it that would block up, And at the point where the gravel bed finally becomes something really effective that you can cap with sand and have a beautiful deep substrate, the under gravel filter keeper rips it all apart and starts all over again. So I knew about that. So sand became the obvious solution. What I discovered very quickly is that the soil it creeps up into the sand. There's a principle at stake there, and I can never remember the word that describes it. Maybe somebody will come up with it. Um, the soil rises up into it, but it only rises up an amount equal to its depth. If it's an inch of dirt, it'll rise up an inch, making it 2 inches. So if you put an extra inch of sand on top of that, you're not going to get dirt going into the water column. It just won't. So 1 inch of dirt, and I discovered that by playing with it and realizing that at a point, if I put like 2 inches of soil in, no matter how much sand I put on top of it, well, for one thing, in a little tank, it's ridiculous. You get this kind of a situation. Um, but it it overcame whatever this sand cap was. It was so much soil and so much biological activity down there that it just kind of exploded through and fouled the tank. Generally, if somebody has a problem with soil in the tank, it's because their soil layer is too deep. 1 inch or even less. I say an inch, I say an inch consistently, but if it's half an inch in a 10-gallon tank, that's perfectly fine and perfectly adequate. You really don't need more than that. You can do an inch, but and it will not be a problem, but it is not critical. We're at 144 and still climbing. We're in good shape. We got a gang in today. Nice to see everybody. Stefan Sinjelik, the legend. I love you too. Stefan, nice to see you. Get you our wrench. Half an inch of dirt. Yeah, half an inch in a 10-gallon tank. It's more than adequate. Half an inch in a 20 is okay. I would do more than that in a 29 or a 40. I certainly would do more than that in a 55. But in a little tank, you don't need even an inch. Half an inch will do just fine. Now, there's another thing. I've started selling. I wish I hadn't, because I'm getting myself in all kind of trouble with people I've made promises to help them market it. But I started doing a kit. Somebody convinced me I should do a kit. Well, I discovered doing the kit is too crazy. I'm not doing the kit anymore. But I started getting requests for the dirt, just the whole thing, all of it. So I put together a 20, that's a 20 tall, and a 55. A 55 is exactly double a 20. A 20 tall is 24 inches wide, 10 inches deep. A 55 is 48 inches wide, and I think it's actually 12 inches deep. So it's a little bit bigger. 1/6, 1/6, not even. Anyway, um, I do these two big bags. And the bag, if you put it in, it comes dry. If you put it in dry, it's like half to 3/4 of an inch. But it contains 50% peat moss. So if you wet it, put it in a bucket and wet it, soak it thoroughly overnight, it'll nearly double in volume. And it'll give you that inch you're looking for. So it may seem inadequate, and if it were, it would be all right, but it's really not. If my tank depletes, I freeze sheets of aquatic compost and slip them under my sand. That's what it was. You were talking about that before. That's eerie. I was trying to remember who in the world came up with and what the idea was. This came up yesterday. Sheets. A frozen sheet, like a half an inch thick sheet of frozen dirt, frozen supplement even. While it's frozen, you can slip it down in there. You gotta be quick. Slip it down in there. If you reduce the water level when you do it, it makes it that much easier. Just slide it right in there. It'll thaw instantly. In a matter of minutes, it'll thaw, and it'll lock that supplement in there. That does work. Ruben Abud Gutierrez, yes. How often should I feed my fish raw chopped garlic, and is it actually good for fish health? Well, that's a really good question. How often? I do it prophylactically, which means when I get around to thinking about it. I don't do it routinely. Some fish really like it. Hamster, get you a wrench. It's not going to be a problem. You don't want to overdo it because it's an organic material that will deteriorate, it'll rot. It is not enough of an antiseptic to actually do any good unless the fish eat it, and then it does kill. It kills bad bacteria. If there's a bacterial infection, it'll correct the infection. Natalie Dundalk, what do I think about liquid fertilizer? It's counterintuitive. Liquid fertilizer puts nutrients in the water column. Now, why do you want to put nutrients in the water column? Well, to feed non-rooted plants. However, if you have fish in the tank, you already have fertilizers in the water column because all of the waste from the fish, particularly the urine, is in the water column. And it's adequate to meet the needs of the plants that are in there. So you don't need it in the water column. The supplement combined with the detritus that is sifting down into the substrate is more than adequate to meet the needs of the plants that are growing in it. And if the supplement is rich enough and that substrate is broad-based enough with its mineral content, it will never need fertilizer. It will never use it up. The only time you use fertilizer is when you have a tank that has no nutrients in it. But we're putting a very high level of nutrient in that substrate. And so there's absolutely no need for it, and really never is there a need for it. The latest video on feeding your tank explains that pretty carefully. Those nutrients are cycling. They're going through a complete cycle where they are feeding, in effect, every living thing in the tank, plant and animal, zygote and otherwise, feeding absolutely everything in that tank. And so it's cycling through the tank. If you put as your water replacement, either for small water changes or for water top off, if you will put your source water in other words, don't put RO water in. Put water in that contains minerals. That will add to the mineral content and simply make it richer. What it does is it provides more nutrients to be able to create a larger biomass in the tank. In other words, you can have more living matter, more living creatures in the tank because you've increased the mineral content of the water. You get a sense of what that means. It means you can actually increase the volume of life in the tank by increasing the amount of nutrients and specifically of minerals that are going into the tank. So increasing the minerals through water doesn't increase the total mineral content. It actually increases the amount of life that is able to be supported in that tank. Ain't that interesting? Ah, a bunch of new people here. Tom Long. Nice to see you, Tom. Where we go? Add as moderator. Right. Let me get all these new people wrenched up here. Chris Gooch. Chris, you just put an order in. We just discussed it today, in fact, didn't we? Chris got one of the big bags, which I had. If you order that, make sure you do not order anything else with it. Now, if you order the one bag, I can get a few plants or something else in with it. If you order the 55-gallon, the 2 bags, I can't put anything else in that box. So you're going to have to order something separately, or I'm going to have to get back to you and hit you up for another $10 to cover shipping. What do I do when the water is turning yellow? Really good question, Jacobs. Yellow water is aged water. It is not bad water. It is very healthy water. It is unusually healthy water. You can clear up the yellow by putting charcoal in it, like charcoal in a bag. If you have an over-the-top filter, you can put charcoal in that. If you have a little filter box, you can put some charcoal in that, and it'll take out the yellow. It's actually dissolved minerals in the water and dissolved organics. It's not at all harmful. It's beneficial, but it ain't pretty. So if you want to take it out, take it out. And that's one way to do it. The other way, of course, is to do water changes. I prefer not to do water changes because I'm one of these crazies who believe that water contains memory, that it somehow structures itself to be in simpatico with the life that's living in it. So it forms a kind of a cohabitation with the life, with the living organisms that are in it. So I don't like to change water. I will do it when it's needful to do it. And sometimes after 6-8 months or so, I'll just get tired of looking at it and I'll chop it in half and just go and put all new water in. I have well water. So with well water, you're safe doing water changes pretty well indiscriminately. because it's natural water coming out of a natural aquifer. I just totally befuddled a whole bunch of people. Oh well, I do that. It ain't deliberate. Let's see, Tamster 2K, get you a wrench. Already did. Says, I stopped using gravel and go with sand. I love it. Have a little trash tank. Threw some plants in and red rubies. No filter, no lights, no bubble. Does amazing. You bet. Ruben. Where'd Ruben go? I had Ruben and lost him. Lost Ruben. Worms will die if there's no oxygen. Yeah, they will. Fish will too, for that matter. Everything will die if there's no oxygen. Beta and tuta pair. Oscar says, shall I sow the seeds of doom and buy a better and tuta pair? Oscar, I do it all the time. It's a challenge. Mine is the chocolate gourami. I cannot keep them alive beyond about 2 months, 3 months tops. They just don't survive. I've got some licorice, though, I've had for 4 months, and they're doing okay. At least I think they are. I don't always see them, but when I go looking for them, I find them. The reason is very simple. I don't have salt water, I have hard water. And I haven't taken it upon myself to set up a saltwater tank. If I did that, I would be able to keep them, I know. Because I've done it before. I did it years ago. I kept them for over a year to the point where I got them to spawn. Didn't get any babies, but I did have eggs. So if once I get moved and situated, I'm working on a house right now. I'm trying to get my tax records and all this stuff together, so I can get approved for a mortgage and get into a decent house. I've got time for all this. Neil Thornton. Neil from Scotland, 3-year cycle tank, inch of dirt, 2 inch of gravel. Should I empty the tank and start again? Absolutely no, no, no. Just add a little sand to it. Put 1 inch of sand on top of that gravel, and you'll be in mint condition. Not a thing wrong with it. Just 1 inch of sand. You'll notice an immediate difference, particularly in the plant growth. But you'll also notice a difference in the life of the tank in general. 1 inch of sand. Prolapsed Angus, thanks for my food web. Kitten leaves and the large autographed photo of fatherfish. You're very welcome. Somebody else bought one of those. I've got one left, so I got to get some more, and I can't do them until, who is this, Chris Gooch? Set up to 75, hoping I get everything I needed for startup. Is there a high-tech fatherfish tank? No, no, it's all low-tech. It's fatherfish tech, more to the point. Thank you for the $10 super chat, Chris. I appreciate it. What are we doing here? I somehow jumped out. How did I do that? Jumped out of the chat. Neil Thornton. You got a wrench. To Neil. Shock me cock. I once knew a kid named Dan Bishop who would eat all his pet fish. How dreadful. He must have been a predator. Predator Dan. Oscar Barrett. Do they need brackish? What's he talking about? If I dead leaves and a complete fatherfish tank, When should I feed my nano tank? The dead leaves are not in and of itself sufficient. You need to have the culture. You need to have the micro and macro culture living in the tank in order to provide that nutrient. Now, a lot of it's microscopic and you can't see it, but there should also be macro fauna in there. Things like little worms, little tiny shrimp, little fairy shrimp. Uh, and you should be able to see copepods, daphnia, those sorts of things. If you can see those in there, then you know you have a food supply sufficient for a moderate number of fish. You're not going to be able to have 100 1-inch fish in a 10-gallon tank and have a food web rich enough to support them. They will eat it down to the nub. Uh, but you got to create a balance there. You do it by building up the food web, supplementing with outside food, or if you can do it, supplementing with cultured food. In other words, if you will feed them daphnia and blackworm, for example, if you will feed them daphnia and blackworm and build up that leaf culture, the daphnia and the worm that escape immediate predation will culture in that substrate and begin to build a culture rich enough to be able to provide long term for the needs of the fish. Converged entity, triumph. I got so many really neat comments on the triumph video. That was fun. Slim Jim. Tank 2 months old going well. What would you advise for cloudy water? A sponge filter, if you don't have one, will help. You can do small 10% water changes. Sometimes that'll flip it. Very often, the cloudiness is a biochemical thing and really not detritus. And doing that little bit of water change can help rebalance it. Uh, Adding another half-inch of sand can also help clear it up. It may be that some of the soil or the detritus is not able to get down into the sand adequately. It may be that your sand part of the substrate is simply not deep enough. So there are three things you can do to clear cloudy water. The other is to wait it out. That's what I'm doing here. I'm waiting it out. And part of the reason is I have very, very strong light on this tank. I've got probably equal to 1,000 watts, which is a huge amount of light. It grows duckweed like mad, but I'm trying to get some of these difficult to grow plants, particularly the reds, to really pop, and they're not doing it yet. I gotta get some more in here. I think I'm getting close though. I put some in the back and they're doing real well. So I'm kind of deliberately blasting it with light in order to try to get a whole new kind of growth pattern from the plants. Curiously, I'm not getting algae. A little bit of hair, but really not much at all. And no algae down here, none to speak of on the glass. But I do get a little bit of green water, and that's what the tint is in here. It's green water. It's not like another tank I've got over here that's pea green. It's and when I turn the lights off at night, it clear by morning it's crystal clear, and then the light just builds up that uh, that those free swimming algae cells to get it to the point where it becomes just, it's really not cloudy, it's more like hazy. Does your Java fern like shade? Java fern can take bright direct sunlight or shade. It can thrive in virtually any kind of lighted condition. It's really kind of remarkable that way. Silver Creek, hello Silver Creek. Zombie Unicorn. Krish Noah. Is it possible to read discus? It absolutely is, and you do not need to do any more water changes than you would otherwise. I think, however, that a 10% water change once a month for discus is probably beneficial. I had discus here. I kept them. They did really well. I had them for about 6 months, and my heater went up and the pump stopped working, and I cooked them. And I haven't gotten more yet because I haven't got a tank set up. I'm going to set up a larger cube and get some big ones. I probably will not do that here. I probably will do that in the warehouse where I'm going to have a a demonstration room, uh, a formal kind of studio that'll have some nice tanks in it. And yeah, I'm going to work on making them pretty. Is there a chance we could look at the salt water? I can't get close to it without disconnecting my camera, unless I could do that. I'll tell you what. Um, that ain't gonna work. I don't have a second camera hooked up. I need to get a second camera hooked up so I can do that. I can get 5 feet from it, which is not close enough to really be able to see anything. And it's kind of stirred up now anyway, so doesn't look very nice. Looks murky. I'll try to get that set up for next week so we can do that. It's a good idea. Yeah, Mr. Amilli, dividing plants from Oscar. Another way to do that is to do a sump for your big fish tank and do plants in the sump. Do a deep substrate in the sump and grow plants in it. So you're filtering water or cycling water between the tank with the big fish and the tank with the plants. If you have two 55s, for example, right alongside each other, you can pump water into one and siphon it back with U-tubes back into the other, or some configuration like that. Being careful, you're not going to flood it unless the siphon quits or unless the siphon is inadequate. But if you use 3 or 4 U-tubes, 1-inch U-tubes, and keep an eye on them because occasionally they'll get an air bubble. If you run a piece of air line up in there, you can suck that air out. And then do a small water pump. Doesn't have to be a big one. A small water pump, but just pump water from one to the other and let it flow back through the U-tubes. It works perfectly. It's brilliant. You can put them belly to belly. If you're good at cutting glass, you can actually cut holes in it and cement it together. I don't do that. I don't like the risk of leakage. If it's at the top, you can get away with it, and you're not likely to ever have leakage. So there are a couple of different ways to do it, but that's a nice way to be able to do it. A deeper substrate with a deeper sand bed in the tank with the big fish allows you to plant like jungle val, big sage, sword plants. Uh, 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 you can do anubias in there, java fern. They're not going to eat that. Larger, heavy leaf plants, and more than one or two. Do a number of them. What I've noticed about fish like that, they're not really eating the plants, they're just terrorizing them. But they will only pick on one at a time. And it'll take them a week or so to get that one down to the nut. By then, you can put in another one. I mean, that's a way to do it. But doing the two tank system works really, really effectively. Top F fin, I have snails in a planted aquarium. I put snail red. It didn't work. What should I do to get them out? Have a good day. Do nothing. There's no reason to take snails out unless you have spixy snails or apple snails, both of which eat plants down to the root. Spixies, that's like a big, it looks like a big spiral snail, a big ram's horn. Or apple snails, which looks like a big mystery snail. It's obvious if you got them. And if you do, they're chewing on the plants. They're big enough to be able to get them out by hand. They're not growing out by the hundreds or thousands. So, if you have ram's horn, mystery snails, bladder snails, pond snails, any of those kinds of ram's horn, did I say? Any of those kinds of snails, neorites, any of those, uh, MTS, none of those eat healthy plants. If they are eating the leaves of plants, it is because those leaves are dead. The plant has stopped providing nutrient to the plant. The leaf is dying because it's growing new leaves. That's a natural part of the process. If you see leaves dying on a well-established tank, it means there are new leaves growing. That's how the plant grows. It does not keep its leaves its entire life. The exception to that are plants such as Vallisneria, but even they, in time, will lose those original leaves. They'll get battered and beaten, and they'll finally just disintegrate. But by then, all new leaves will have grown out. That'll be bigger and healthier and stronger than the leaves that were there to begin with. If your leaves are growing out and they are not bigger, your nutrients are inadequate to support the life and growth of the plant. It's really that simple. I'm obviously jumping around here. Can discus eat pork, pork scratchings? Putting things like beef, pork, lamb, goat, any kind of warm-blooded meat in the tank is more than likely going to putrefy. And it'll happen rather quickly. That's one thing that'll happen. The other thing that happens is fish and other aquatic creatures cannot digest animal fat. And so the animal fat will remain in the water column and will create a slick on the surface that will have the effect of acting as a barrier to oxygen exchange, thereby acting like oil, in other words, on the surface, thereby suffocating everything in the tank. One ought never, ever feed hot dogs or hamburger to your fish. It will always have a negative impact, not so much on the fish as on the entire aquarium, because the aquarium will not be able to assimilate all of the organics that are involved in a warm-blooded animal. Chicken, any kind of bird, fowl, any kind of fish, those are all fine. Rats, mice, hamsters, gerbils, no good. Frogs are okay. Snakes are okay. Salamanders are okay. I'm not recommending them. I'm just saying. They're cold-blooded animals. They don't have the same kind of fat. They have a fat that the fish are able to, and other aquatic vertebrates and invertebrates are able to take in and use. Oh, here we go. This is interesting. Neil Shannon talking about getting sand from near the shoreline. Hold on one second. From the shoreline as opposed to further up because it's less dusty. If it's wet sand, it's going to contain microbes from the salt water, unless you're getting it from a freshwater lake. And if you are, I would go out into the water. If you're putting sand in a freshwater tank and you live alongside a lake, a freshwater lake that has sand, go out into the water to collect the sand. You want the microbes in the sand in your tank. Don't put dry sand in the tank. Put only wet sand in the tank. In other words, duplicate as close as possible what is in nature. Same with a saltwater tank. Do not, however, switch saltwater sand in a freshwater tank or freshwater sand in a saltwater tank. It'll cause problems because the microbes will all die, and it has the potential then to foul the water. It'll slow things way down. So you don't want to do that. I recommend to people who are collecting sand on an ocean beach for a freshwater tank to go up into the dunes to collect the sand. It's really not going to have dust in it because the rain will have washed it. If you get it off the surface, it'll be rain washed. You can bring that back and put it in. Or if you want to dig down, which in a dune I don't recommend you do because they're usually protected by state law or federal law, what's worse. You may check on that. You don't want to be taking sand off a protected beach. Don't do that. But there are plenty of unprotected beaches where you can get sand, in the bays as well. You can get plenty of sand out of bays, plenty of sand out of lakes. So you can get it, just be careful where you're getting it. The tube junkie. I don't know why you got deleted there, and I'm not even gonna guess. I don't want to know. Don't fish it kebab. No, they don't like kebab. Buzzard snails left. Oh, what I've got rabbit snails. Got them right down in front here usually. I don't see any. I have yet to have them breed. I've had them for years, 2 to 3 years, and I've not seen a baby. I think they're brackish. I think they have to be in brackish, and they're also they're a live bearer, so I don't know what the problem is. I don't see them. They're back in the back somewhere. Somewhere. Natalie Dendalk. A lot of controversy on Discord and chats. Really nervous about my tank. A German blue rim, a beta 6 coolie for a platy, and a 20-gallon. I would say let's see now. One German blue, one betta, 6 coolies, 4 platies, and a 20 fodder fish. Am I overstocking? If you have plants in there, if you have a substantial amount of plants, some other kind of hardscape, piece of driftwood, some rockwork, whatever, a deep substrate, then you are about 1/3 understocked. You could triple what you have in there and it would not be too much. So anybody's telling you you're overstocked with what you have in there really doesn't have enough experience keeping fish to warrant having an opinion that's worth listening to. So I would suggest to you that you tell them they need to learn how to keep fish. And just don't be intimidated. Do not listen, guys. Those of you who are doing this, and I know it's the majority of you, don't be intimidated. The one thing you're going to learn doing this is how many people are out there who are going to hold their nose and walk by and say, oh, how dreadful, oh, how terrible. Those are people who, number one, understand that much about fish keeping. Precisely, exactly that much. They are to be pitied and ignored for their opinion because they have no opinion that is worthy of being expressed other than, I wish I could do what you're doing. Then you can teach them. So if somebody has something to say, ask them if they have done it. Have you done this? Yes, but have you done it? Have you created this kind of tank? Well, I would never. Well, then you'll never know, will you? You will never know how utterly magnificent this is until you get over yourself and try it. I've been at this for 5 years. The number of people who said that 5 years ago has diminished substantially. I have yet to get DIY Joey to do a dirted tank, and he's got a million reasons not to do it. But the main reason is he doesn't understand enough about keeping fish to be willing to risk it. He probably at this point actually knows more than he thinks he does. In his heart of hearts, he knows he's still just a beginner, but he's kind of trapped in a modality that he created. And I would love to just shake him out of it and say, come on, Joey, let's do some really cool stuff. You got the money, the resources, the energy, the time, and the ambition. Let's do it. I've tried, and I will keep trying. And he ain't the only one. There are others. I only name his name because I love him. Crazy as he is, I love him. Cindy Pittman, do you top off the dirt with play sand? I never use play sand because it's so dusty and has clay in it. And I'm too lazy to rinse it. I get sand that doesn't require that level of rinsing. I mean, it's fine. If you do it, when you're, excuse me, do I have something to drink here? I'm hiccuping. Oh my, that hit the spot. That spot right there. When you're setting up your tank, put the dirt in and you put the sand on top. You can put unwashed play sand right there. And then if you got a quarter to a half an inch of clean sand to put on top of that, not critical, don't have to do it, but it'll help a little bit. Cover it well with a piece of plastic, like a plastic bag, and put the water in so it does not stir up the sand. If you will do that, when you take that plastic out after it's full, it'll be slightly cloudy, but it'll clear up. It'll clear up in a day or two. You can do that, and it's actually better than washed sand because it has so many tiny particulates in it that all harbor bacteria and help to filter that substrate, that detritus as it is precipitating down into the sand and into the deeper parts of the substrate. So you can use it. You want to use it carefully. And if you'll do that and do it that way, it will be marginally more successful than if you used pool filter sand, for example. I've done it both ways, and I really like what the play sand does. You can't dump it in the water. That's the issue, because it'll cloud it up so bad it'll kill the fish. Cindy Pittman, can I use Florida beach sand? Absolutely, Cindy, it's perfect. It will tend to harden the water. It tends to have a lot of ancient crushed coral in it and shell. Has a lot of shell in it. So it's going to tend to be, it's going to tend to it's going to tend to dissolve very slowly. What can I do for Blackbeard algae, says William. Avery, hello, William. Nice to see you. You know, there's a thought. William just typed this in caps, and my eye went right to it. When we've got a scroll like this where I'm missing everything, try typing it in caps. Putting in my name, I really should be more attentive to that. I think I probably am. Yeah, put in my name, Father Fish, and then type it in caps. And I should be able to go right to that. What can I do for Blackbeard algae? My recommendation for Blackbeard algae is to learn to thoroughly enjoy it. You will discover it is a beautiful plant. It gets long and flowy like hair, like a woman's beautiful long hair. And as soon as you really are in love with that and proud of it and excited about it, I haven't snapped my finger in years. It will disappear. It'll be gone. Blackbeard algae exists because there are excess nitrates in the water. And by excess, I mean a nitrate level approaching 400. That's the point where Blackbeard begins to really take hold. Very high nitrate level. And that's normal. That's typical for algae in general. If you have algae, it's because your nitrates are elevated and you don't have adequate plants in the tank to take up those excess nitrates. Once the Blackbeard becomes established and is pumping down those excess nitrates, they begin to drop. When they drop down below about 300, the Blackbeard will absolutely disappear. It'll just go away like it was never there, and it'll happen overnight. It'll be gone, and you won't even notice it's gone. So, my suggestion to you is you ignore it. Now, the fear is that it's going to choke out the plants. It does not do that. It will grow on the edge of leaves that are dead or dying. Old leaves. You'll never see it growing on a new leaf. On old leaves, it'll grow right around the edge. It's not killing the plant, it's simply feeding on the waste that is being produced by that plant that leaf deteriorating. So it's not causing anything negative to happen in the tank. It is not something that needs to be taken care of because it's creating a problem. That is not the case. The only problem is in the eye of the beholder. That's the only problem that exists. So get over yourself. Learn to love it. The more you learn to love that which you can't tolerate, the quicker you will gain absolute control over it because you'll learn why it's there. Whatever it is. Whatever it is. Learn to love it. Not just tolerate it, appreciate it. Understand it. Come to terms with it. Acknowledge it has a reason for being there. And learn what that reason is through simple observation. You can do it. I will do that, Mighty Joe Young. I will show the salt tank. We'll do that. I'll tell you what, I'll do it Wednesday night. I'll get set up to do it Wednesday for our show and tell. Father Fish had whitebeard algae, but he shaved it off. He sure did. Almost all of it. Question, Father Fish, is frozen Daphnia okay? It certainly is. Frozen foods in generally are okay. They're not alive. And that's the biggest drawback is that they're not alive. They contain pretty much the same nutrients, not in the same form. So you don't have living organisms that are breaking down in the gut. You have dead organisms breaking down in the gut. What the freezing does is it holds them in stasis longer than if they simply dried out. Drying out reduces too much of the food value, but freezing retains enough of that. Now you don't want to put Daphnia cubes or any other frozen cube that's been sitting in your freezer for the last 4 years. You don't want to feed that because it has zero food value. It is totally gone. It's wiped out, it's done, it's finished. Throw it away. Or throw it out in your Daphnia pool. They'll love it. Geo Tank Mates, Father Fish. I have a Walstad tank set up for 5 years. Always add supplement to keep the KH up. Any ideas why? I rarely change water. What is your cap? What are you capping it with? That's why. If you're capping it with sand, you won't need to do that. Rarely change water. KH, carbonate. Always add supplement to keep the peak KH up. So you're supplementing to keep the pH up. That means you don't have adequate buffers in the substrate. Um, you don't have adequate carbons in there or humic material that's creating carbonates that are helping to maintain a stable pH. There probably is not a whole lot you can do about that long term. Thoughts on using your method in a column fish tank? I've had a couple of them. They're very difficult plants, very difficult tanks, very difficult. And the main difficulty is, yeah, you need to be able to move the water from the bottom to the top. Otherwise, it gets striated and it'll go dead at the bottom. And to get a pump that can pump water 5 feet takes a pretty sturdy pump. Even well, probably the best thing you can do is a water pump. Put a small water pump in the bottom of it and let it circulate the water. Turn it up so it's shooting the water up. An air pump is going to be almost impossible because you got to have so much pressure. You're not going to get a pump big enough to be able to do it. But a water pump, a small water pump, it 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 cavitates. I mean, it does. It may cavitate. It's simply an electromagnetic device that's twirling. So water pressure is not really going to affect that very much at all. It may slow it down a bit, but it'll be able to build up enough current to get it going and it'll move water. That's probably the biggest single difficulty. So far as the substrate is concerned, I would do like two, if it's a 5 foot, 2 to 3 inches of soil, 6 to 8 inches of sand. So you've got nearly a foot of substrate in the bottom, 10 inches minimum. Then you can build jungle val, Sagittarius, some swords in that, which is difficult to do because your arm won't reach down in there. It's part of the reason for getting a foot of substrate in there so you can get down a little further. You're going to need tweezers. You're going to need to get the roots down in there 2 to 3 inches. You got to get them in deep enough that they're not going to float out because you don't want to have to do that again. That's going to work, and that's going to work pretty effectively. I would use LEDs because LED will pierce to the bottom. The beam is not, it does not cone out, therefore the beam does not deteriorate. It's a straight light, a straight beam that goes straight down, and it'll go like a laser all the way to the bottom. That'll get light down there where you want it at the very bottom, which is going to help a whole lot of things to happen. So a couple of things you can do. Those are the basic ones. Make sure you got a lid on it. You really don't want evaporation in it. What else? About it. You could put a waterproof light in it and drop it down like a waterproof rope. Drop down in there. It's not going to give you very much light. It's very low level light. You want probably 100 watts on the top of that. If it's a 12-inch diameter, put a floodlight, a 12-inch 100-watt floodlight. You can even do a 200 on top of it and powerhouse the light through it. What else? How did you move all your tanks to your warehouse? Need someone to watch my tank over the summer. I need to bring it over to their house. Take the water out down to an inch. 1 to 2 people to carry it with the substrate in it, which means a 200-gallon tank is not going to get moved that way, nor will 100. You can do it in a 55. It'll be heavy. It'll be 125 to 150 pounds. So 2 strong men or a third to help to pick it up and move it, and then set it down. Make sure it goes on a stable support. Put the water back in, and you're good to go. You can, if you're moving it right away, you don't have fish in it. You can take the water all the way down. That's going to substantially reduce the weight. Dig a little pit, a hole in one corner, and siphon the water down as far as you can. Move it that way. That gets another 30 to 40 pounds out of it. 50 pounds, maybe that much. It's 8 pounds a gallon, so you figure how many gallons will be coming out? 3 to 4, 32 to 40 gallons. The main thing is you don't want to disturb the substrate, but taking the water out is not going to disturb it. And it can be like that for hours, not days, hours. So long as you can get the water back in it. I did not move any tanks over there with substrate in them. I probably will when I move out of here, because I'll probably take all these over to there. And that's what I'll do. I'll just drain them down. Now, I probably will leave the plants in. Cover the plants with wet newspaper. That'll keep them from drying out. They will dry out, so that's important to do. You can cover them with plastic. Wet newspaper works better. Let's see, is it okay to top off your tank with water from your resurrection? That probably is going to be too much. You want to be careful how much resurrection material you put in, particularly if it's a new tank. An older, better established tank, it doesn't matter so much. But in a new tank, the biological system in there is not very strong. It's not really substantial. It can only handle so much. So if you overload it, you run the risk of polluting the tank, of putting so much nutrient in effect in there. Because keep in mind, these resurrection jars has a lot of dead material in it. All the dead leaves, all the dead this, that, and the other thing. It's a lot of dead material you're putting in your tank all at once. So do it in small increments that your tank will be able to take care of. You can spread it out. You can leave it together. It doesn't matter so much. I tend to spread it some, but leave it in a given area. And then add some leaves and do that every week. And you can build it up. You'll be amazed how quickly you'll be able to get it built up to the point where you really can then do that. Actually, I do that. In my tanks, I use water from my outdoor vats, which is stirred up, has a lot of dirt and leaves and mulch in it. I stir it up, fill up a container, bring it in and dump it, the whole thing. Dump the whole thing right in the tank. And I never have a problem. These tanks have been set up 1.5 to 2 years. I would never dare do that in a brand new tank. Pogostemon. Pogostemon is a wonderful plant. Wonderful plant. Fish Aquarium Adventure. You're very welcome. Thank you. Excellent, excellent fish aquarium. I need to give you a wrench. Let's see. There we go. Make you a moderator. Colleen Carita. Did I give you a wrench? I did not. But I'm doing it now. What time is it? 7:30. Lord, the time flies, doesn't it? Mattis Factory. We did that, didn't we? That was funny, gotta admit. Did I see? Oh, LRB is here. Hello, LRB. Delighted to see you. Is or was. Hope I caught you. Apathetic Squid. 2 questions. Is there a way to convert a pre-existing tank to be dirted? It's key to wet dirt when setting up a tank. Is there a remedy that I forgot? um, there is a way. Now you can use Erie's system of freezing dirt in a sheet and sliding it in there. But if you've got a well-established gravel tank that's been set up for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, let's say it's an under gravel tank, and you're just tired of breaking it down every year and cleaning it, leave it. Leave the tray in there, leave the sand there, unscrew or twist out the stand tube, that 1-inch tube that the hose goes down in, the air comes up. Take that out and then put 2 inches of sand on top of it. 1 to 1.5 inches will be adequate. That's all you need to do, and you will have a dirted deep substrate that will only get better as it gets older. You've got all kinds of material already down in there. You're simply capping it and allowing it to be substrate, allowing it to be the dirt at the bottom of the sea or the creek or the pond or the lake or the bayou, allowing it to be there and do its job. And it works fine. That's perfect. The older it is, the more comparable it is. Here's the truth of the matter. A deep substrate system that's 5 years old, you can't tell the difference between the two. They are virtually identical. And by the two, I mean the gravel tank that was set up for a year, 2 years, 3 years, sand cap, and has been going for a year or two, and the deep substrate set up father fish method. The only difference you'll see is the gravel. The life force will be the same, the growth will be the same, it'll be identical in every respect. This may have marginally more nutrient in it because it was put in to begin with. But if you've been feeding a good food and leaving the leaves in there and letting everything deteriorate in there, you're there. You're right where you want to be. Hope that helps. I think that can give a lot of people some real heart. Can you explain GH, general hardness? General hardness is minerals dissolved in water that are not carbonates. Carbonates are KH. Carbonates are what affects pH. General hardness, minerals such as iron. Iron is a typical dissolved mineral. All of the trace elements, magnesium, all of the phosphates, all of the borax, all of these minerals that are in water, that dissolve in water, that have no effect at all on the hardness of the, on the pH of the water, affect the hardness of the water. So the more of them that are in there, the harder that water is. The harder the water is, the more brackish it is. The more brackish it becomes, the more it becomes salt water. So the difference between salt water and spring water is the amount of dissolved minerals in the water. That's it. It doesn't get simpler than that. The ocean has substantially more dissolved minerals in the water than does rainwater flowing as a river. Rainwater has virtually none. River has more because it's picking them up as it runs its course. Minerals are dissolving in it more and more and more and more until it gets down to the delta, drops that load of silt it's carrying, and begins to assimilate then with the deeper ocean, and is by then itself carrying a load of minerals comparable to what is in the ocean. Now, not precisely so. You can see at deltas, you can see striata of freshwater and saltwater. It's visually visible. You can see in very deep water, you can see layers of salt that are so heavily brine, they are a separate layer at the bottom of very deep ocean water. You can actually move into that and it'll suddenly become substantially more hard, general hardness, than it was. So it's all a function of this. The Dead Sea and the Dead Sea in Israel and the Great Salt Lake in Utah, is that right? Are very, very heavy general hardness. They also have a lot of carbonates in. They typically come together, although they are not necessarily together. It is uncommon for very hard water to be acidic, but it does happen and can happen. It can especially happen in a fish tank if you're adding minerals to the water without adding carbonates. In natural bodies of water, it is virtually unheard of for a saltwater body or even a brackish water body to have a pH lower than 8.0, and it'll go higher, not a lot higher, but it'll go a bit higher. Hope that's what you were looking for, Natalie. Psycho Plant Lady, Father Fish, what are your thoughts? Oh, the column fish tank. We did that. Am I that far back? 7:14. Well, 15 minutes. I've done worse. We did the frozen Daphnia. What else we on here? Can I be Father Fish if I'm able to outlive you? Shifty Mac. I have not passed that honor on yet. And I do believe I will make a serious effort to do so, because I believe Father Fish has a place in this hobby that deserves longevity. Father Fish needs to be around for 100 years to become the face of the tropical fish industry. Now, I don't know about saltwater fish, although my hunch is it's going to be true there too. If I get to the place where I can really break through and start doing saltwater the Father Fish way, which I know how to do, and begin making a real impact, I just don't know that I have the stamina to put up with the hardheads and the know-it-alls and the vaunted experts that exist in the saltwater world. I just don't know if I got it in me to fight with them. But I tell you what, it's happening all by itself. If you look around in the saltwater streams, there are people who are there. They're doing it. They're doing never change water. They're doing deep substrate. They're doing it. It's happening. Stacy says, no other will be called fatherfish from my lips. God bless you, Stacy. I love you. I love you. What else we got here? Cool and nice. Thank you. Thank you so much. Stonewort. Stonewort. You don't mean stonewort. You don't mean stonewort. Now you got me. The worts. There are different. There are a number of plants that are worts. W-O-R-T, not W-A-O-R-T. W-O-R-T. Some of them are carnivorous. There are wort plants that are carnivorous. Psychedelic hippocampus. Will red granite add anything to the water column that I should worry about? No, not at all. In fact, where is it? Did I bring it in? Where did I put it? I did bring it in. I have, oh, there it is. Whatever it got, excuse me, a pair of canaries yesterday, a second pair. I got them all in one cage. I'm going to separate them out tomorrow. And I purchased from the bird keeper a 5-pound container of crushed granite with eggshell in it. And I'm going to put it in the fish tank and see what it does. Because I think crushed granite is a perfectly appropriate cap for a fish tank. And it probably is going to have a lot more. I don't know what it's going to have in it. Crushed granite. We're going to find out, aren't we? So, no, I don't think so. Red granite would be granite with clay. So you're going to be putting clay in. Clay doesn't hurt a thing. Clay is nutrients. It's nutrients. It's more minerals. It's just a wider variety of minerals. A lot of which is iron. It's red because of the iron. So you're going to be adding iron. That's a good thing. Plants love iron. You can't have too much iron in a tank. Hornwort, hornwort, hornwort. 190 watching. Yeah, Erie says, I remember when they were 10. No, you don't. You do no such thing. I remember when they were 10. You were around when they were 50 or 60. 75, upwards, when we were trying to get to 100. That wasn't all that long ago, year and a half ago, trying to get to 100. Now we're trying to get to 200. I have been there a few times. When Alex came over, I think we were at like 250 or something. It was pretty good. Where are we now? 189. With 2 in Facebook. Hello, Facebook viewers. Nice to see you. What else? What else? Father Fish Discord channel. Do join the Discord channel. You will be happy you did. Ray's Fish Farm. Father Fish. Is your store in Florida still there? No. I shut it down. I actually liquidated. Took an immense loss doing it. I mean, I gave it away basically. I think I had a facility that cost about $250,000 to build out. and when I sold it all off, I got about 17, 18,000, of which 5,000 was owed to me and never paid. So I got bus money out of it. Got enough money to move. What else? What leaves do I put in the tank? Any, any leaf I can find. Collected, not picked. Collected, not picked. Fallen, not picked. Fallen leaves. Fallen leaves are leaves that the tree has given up on, sucked everything out of it can use, and said goodbye. Plucked leaves have all the living force in them, which will foul the water like you wouldn't believe. The same as sap in green wood. And green wood might be very dense wood, a large piece of dense wood or thick wood that has been laying on the ground for a while, maybe a year or so, and you put it in the tank and the tank fouls. It is because there is still a lot of organic material, active organic material, sap, if you will, in sugars inside that wood that have not dried out, that have not dissipated, that have not been washed out. Wood coming out of water is always going to be superior to wood coming off the land because it's adequately washed out. You can tell when you look at it. You can tell by holding it. Let's see, I think I've got all the questions. Capping with sugar sand. Or you or Oru, I don't, can't say that. 14 says, Father Fish, how about capping, I assume, with sugar sand? Sugar sand, of course, is very, very fine sand. I've used fine sand a couple of different times. I've never used it deliberately. I've used it accidentally on two occasions that I remember vividly. And in both of those, the plant growth was astounding. Better than in a regular sand cap tank. No idea why. In the one case, the sugar sand or fine powdered sand was in a strata below a coarser sand. And the other, it was a cap on top of a coarser sand. In both cases, tremendous plant growth. Don't know why, but that's my experience. Neil Shannon, it's like nature is a magical essence from the air. As soon as light hits the water, life appears. Fruit flies appear seemingly from nowhere. Ain't that the truth? Put a banana peel down. Put a banana peel down in a cardboard box with the lid closed for a day. It'll have gnats in it. Fruit flies. Let's see. I'm scrolling down. Here we go. Father Fish, Natalie Dundalk. Are bettas sometimes more mean because they're in bad conditions? If they are in better conditions, would they be better in community tanks? Natalie, the natural condition of a very healthy, vigorous, strong, very healthy male betta is to be a beast. That is its nature. And it is only not a beast when it is sick. If it's healthy, it's gonna fight. Now, it may not fight any other fish than another male betta. It may not be aggressive toward other fish at all. One of the things that I've noticed about fish, if you put fish in a tank from two completely different environments, for example, African cichlids with Oscars, by and large, they will ignore each other. They won't even see each other. They won't even know the other fish is in the tank. We got 10 minutes and I can't make it. I'm going to need to make a pit stop here, guys. Be right back. Hang in there. Talk among yourselves. Whisper. Be right back. Oh, Lord. Oh. Alright. Down to the wire here. Let's see. I'll bet Father Fish was a male betta in his day. You're gonna want to know. Can I use dirt from my yard under my sand? 1/4. 1/4, 25%. 50% peat moss or some other coir type material, COIR. 50% potting soil, garden soil, backyard soil, whatever. 25% rather. And 25% compost material. Use black cow. Any kind of compost, pond muck. 25, 25, 50. And then add to that, what would it be? 25, 6, 25, 12, 12 or 6? 2, 1, 1, 1, 4, 6. 6% father fish supplement. That would be 1 cup in a 20-gallon tank. There's a chart for this that explains the quantities on Discord. You can get there and look it up, and it's pretty good. It's pretty accurate. It's based on square inches footprint. In other words, that's really what you need to go by. Don't go by the size of the tank. Go by the square inches that you're covering. You want 1 inch deep across whatever the square inches is, whatever the footprint is. Let's see. Invincible. Get you a wrench and read your question, Invincible. I have your supplement pack, and my resurrection jar is about 20 days old. Can I use aqua soil from a 1-year-old existing tank as the dirt? You can, but since you're doing this new, I would add to it peat moss. See if you can get some peat moss and mix in an equal amount of peat moss, and then add the supplement, an appropriate amount of the supplement to it. That's going to give you the humic material that you need. Humus is really important to making this thing work. That's why we go with such a high volume of peat or other humic material. Ben Raphael setting up a tank with stratum substrate. Should I do away with under gravel? Well, if you do away with it, I mean, if you leave it, then you're creating a plenum. Don't use the tube. Don't suck water through it. There are people who like plenums. I researched it, and my take on it is I'm indifferent to it. I think it creates an environment that does not exist in nature. I shouldn't say does not. It actually does. Underground rivers are an example of it existing in nature, but it does not exist at the surface of any natural environment. Cat toes. A partial water change disruptive for a food web. I really cannot answer your question, Cat toes. It's a very, very good question and a good observation. My sense is that it would not be beneficial unless there were some other issues with the water in the tank, such as significant oxygen depletion, which would be a function of excess bacteria by virtue of something dying and fouling the water. All right, we're getting down to it. Zombie is gone. Love you all. 40 babies in my 55 too many? Oh, certainly not. Depending on the baby. Baby what? Osmocote. I have nothing against Osmocote. It's a good slow release material. The only thing is, you got to get it in the substrate and cap it with sand. Otherwise, it floats around. It's lighter than sand. So if you try to put it in after the fact, you're going to have a difficult time getting it to stay down under the sand because it ain't going to want to. All right, are we there? We are there, Janet C. Indeed, been great fun being with you all. We got into some stuff, didn't we? We always get into stuff. Delighted to be with you. Delighted to have the chance to do this with a gang of people. It's so much fun. And I love you all. Check out the current videos. We're doing well and going gangbusters. Need your feedback on videos, please. I don't get to read everything. The comments have overwhelmed me. It would take me 10 hours a day to read all the comments. I just can't do it. I dedicate 2 to 3 hours a day to the comments and the videos. And at that, I'm doing a little more than putting hearts on everything. I mean, it's kind of a lost cause. So get in Discord. I have a better chance of seeing you there. And there are lots of other people who are there as well and who will help. Same's true in the videos. Fortunately, I appreciate everybody who's lending a hand and trying to help out folks. Means a lot. Means everything. Means we can move forward. Means I ain't one anymore. Love you all. See you Wednesday. Be here Wednesday at 8 o'clock for an hour. We're going to do show and tell. So pretty up your tank, clean the glass, and prepare to come up and show it off. Love you all. Bye for now.